I'm here this afternoon because of the tremendous challenges that our children face in seeking equitable education in the state of Connecticut. It's not just a Norwalk problem, it's not just a Bridgeport problem, it's a problem for all of us. There are so many dedicated educators and education system support people who simply desire to do the very best they can to improve our children's plight. There's a saying that most of us have accepted as reasonably educated person's analysis of insanity. That is, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting to get different results. This nation's former poet laureate, Maya Angelou, said what amounts to an equivalent much more eloquent than I ever could when she said, "I did then what I knew how to do. Now that I know better, I do better." And it's time for us to do better for our children. Everyone who is minimally well informed about our education funding formula knows that it is inequitable, and therefore, because it clearly poses severe risk of injury to minors, is in fact and in effect criminal. If I intentionally shackled and injured a child, I would certainly be prosecuted to the full extent of the law and should expect the same. I hereby call upon the Connecticut State Legislature and every elected and appointed official remotely affiliated with the education of our children to either turn themselves in for what would be certain incarceration or to take a stand, as some who will do here today, to demand adjustments that will create equity in education for Connecticut's children. I implore each citizen of Connecticut to rise up, not against a fair and equitable national election, but against the unfair and inequitable education system fueled by the cancerous funding formula that has and continues to cripple the ability of schools to put their best feet forward to educate our children. The fact that the large majority of these affected and afflicted children are members of low-income and minority families and community amounts to intentional genocide for this segment of our population. Speaking of people slated for slavery and genocide, let me call upon the voice of Nelson Mandela, who said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." The world is changing quickly, with us or without us. And we must recognize that an undereducated population condemns America and therefore her people to being left at the station as the train pulls away to a future where, short of overly aggressive military influence, we are rendered as marginal participants at best. It is time for us to stand up together for the needed changes of education in Connecticut, the first of which should be the funding formula. We can then move on to a broader range of effective delivery systems through the myriad school types that are producing good results here in Connecticut and around the country, charters, magnets, and the like. Let me leave you with one last challenge, a timeless quote from a timeless yet well-respected voice of humanity from the past, someone we know as Aristotle. The educated differ from the uneducated as much as the living differ from the dead. The educated differ from the uneducated as much as the living differ from the dead. Let us commit today to stop the slaughter of our children in our society that is effectuated through the mis- and undereducation that thereby replace the dark and dim eyes of hopelessness that continue to populate our cemeteries, our prisons, our halfway houses, and our homeless shelters with those that seek and achieve futures bright and shiny in the eyes of our children who just desire to do their best. It's time for us to stand up and do our best for our children. No more excuses, no more talk. It's time for action for our children.